Hour 7. The other thing I like about Fender starts with an F, ends with Ender.
And we are live this Sunday afternoon. If you're in Mountain Time, it's afternoon still. And this is Texas Toast, our weekly podcast. And this is Matt. And with me today, I have Chris, and we have Ian Monkey. And Mrs. Texas Toast is working the phone lines, as it were. We also have some in-studio guests. We have Grace and Lance. So it's going to be a lot of fun today. We're scheduled to go for an hour. And I believe that this topic is going to be polarizing enough that it's going to be easy to go longer than that. But let's try to keep this.
You think
at an
there's
hour.
going to be a lot of
I don't
descending? I think you're wrong.
Probably.
I don't think it's going to go an hour.
What about PRS?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guarantee.
No, there's none of that.
Yeah. So
the only ones that we're allowed to talk about.
That's right. So for the sake of this conversation today, our podcast is about Gibson versus Fender, or if you are so inclined, Fender versus Gibson. And what we're not trying to do here is go, oh, what about Ibanez, or what about some other company, or what about the jerk off guitar that I have? No one cares. This is all about Gibson and Fender, and we'll get to all the other jerk off guitars in other future podcasts. So
we're going to do a First Act versus Samick next week.
That's right.
Be here for that.
The battle
of Washburn's Lion versus Silvertone. Not the
Washburn.
old ones, the new ones that are, I think, fantastic.
The Washburn Wonderbar versus the AccuTune, which was neither accurate nor in tune. Anyway,
I just want to let you guys know one thing. I'll talk about whatever the hell I want to, you friggin' fashion.
Thank you. That's terrific. Thank you for playing. So let's set a couple more ground rules, as if there weren't enough already. We're assuming, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't even do this, but I've purposely tried to not think about this and formulate any opinions, because we're approaching this from not like I think one's cooler. So so eat shit. I mean, I get that, that's a thing, but what we're really talking about, because we're guitar makers, let's talk about, Fender and their methods of making guitars versus Gibson and their methods for making guitars. How about that? Can we agree on that at least? Okay. And if anyone wants to call in and go, what about Paul Reed Smith? We'll get to that in a different thing, but I'm almost positive someone's already typing, what about Paul Reed Smith? It's probably someone, to be a butthole about it. But anyway.
Well, Chris Hatton said Gibsons are one-trick ponies.
There you go. Okay, so we'll answer all these questions, but one of the things that we're trying to do in these podcasts, and I know we haven't actually started the topic yet, but one of the things we're trying to do with these is come up with a sensational title. And it reminds me, I got an email from I got a comment on a YouTube video. We're gonna do Ian's riffing on comments. Some guy was like, well, you never actually said what's better about a one-piece guitar body. And I'm like, yeah, I just did that to, get attention. So he fires back at me. That's also called clickbait. And I'm like, yeah, okay, dude, I got it. Sorry you don't like my videos. Go watch Maximum Guitar. He's good. So that's what I told him. Anyway, and Steve is good. So if you don't like the tech, get started on our podcast topic for today. Gibson versus Fender, Fender versus Gibson. I don't even really know where to start.
Fender's rule, Gibson's drool. That's the end.
Okay. So this is good because Chris and I actually come from two very different builder standpoints. He's always been a Fender guy, and in that he likes bolt-on necks and the 5/4 maple necks and stuff like that. I've always gravitated towards set necks and angled headstocks, 3 on the side versus 6, that kind of stuff. So I don't even know. Maybe we should just start at the beginning, or start at the ass end of the guitar.
Let's
strap buttons.
Why do you like those things? Why do you prefer Gibson style things over?
Well, my first guitar was a Gibson SG, so that probably has a lot to do with it. And I don't, I could say that like my favorite guitar players played one particular brand of guitar more than another, but that's not even true. So you're way back there. This is This is weird. You should look at the camera, Chris, and then I can look at you looking at me. It's like that Ozzy song.
Oh, I was thinking rat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one too. That's right. This is Matt. He enjoys beating off while watching videos of himself beating off, skateboarding, and various inhalants. So yeah,
Especially metallic.
so yeah, have you guys thought about this topic at all?
I thought about it.
Okay, well, you kick it off with a double shot of Van Halen. Or just sit there like a lump. Come on, Chris, quit screwing around.
What do you want to know?
What was
Why do I prefer? Or
apparently you've thought about this, so throw it out there.
So I guess ultimately I'm more of
bro.
a You know, if you're not going to give me 3 seconds to
we don't want to have any
my
dead
ideas,
air time.
Yeah. I think one of some of the reasons that I'm more of a Fender guy than a Gibson guy, and that changed at some point in my life. At one of my first good guitar was a Les Paul style guitar, and I liked that guitar fine. And actually, when I bought it, the guy at the pawn shop at Wedgell's pawn shop, I was like, they had a Strat and they had a Les Paul, and he's like, well, let me ask you this: do you like? And I don't even remember, Eric Clapton or Slash, and I was like, well, probably Slash. And he's like, well, then buy the Les Paul.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I bought. And for a long time, that's what I had. And that's what I played. And I was kind of into the blues, and that was fine. And then I got a little more into the blues and, Stevie Ray Vaughan and Strats. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Those are neat. And then I got into surf, and everything in surf is Fender. And I finally got a Strat, and then I got a Jazz Master, and part of the other thing too is just the whole history of Fender is so cool. And one of the things that I think I like about Fender versus Gibson is Fender is a uniquely electric company. Everything they did from the very beginning is electrified.
They definitely
started out with lap
with,
steels and amps.
And while they've made
and
some
went
acoustic
to,
things,
but that was a way for them to get more money. It wasn't really their focus, and that's and so everything they've done is aimed at electric guitars and electric players.
That's an excellent point. Fender has really embraced electric guitars, especially solid body electric guitars, way before Gibson did. And if there was one thing that got Gibson into the solid body electric guitar market, it was Leo Fender.
Yeah, it really was. They were getting their proverbial butt handed to them.
You can say ass.
I like saying butt.
Okay, well we are not monetized. So
I know, but I'm going to say butt.
We can say shit ass, and we can say whatever we want. Because
earmuffs.
We don't even have to say earmuffs.
Anything.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
We can say muff,
rear end.
You can say cock, bitch, whore, pussy,
whatever you want. Yeah,
and all 8 listeners laughed.
So, I think one of the things that I like, if I see a band and there's 2 guitar players and one guy has a Gibson and one guy has a Fender, I always gravitate towards. I think the guy with the Gibson looks cooler. I don't know why I think that is, but yeah, I think that is.
Fender did a really good job of making their guitar super iconic looking. If you asked anyone who is just draw a guitar for me, they're probably going to draw a Fender.
Excellent point. Yeah, if you look up in the dictionary or the encyclopedia, there was a time, kids, before the internet. If you were to look up electric guitar in one of those books, there'd be a picture of a Strat. So
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is everybody's like, "Wow, the Strat was so ahead of its time." It's a P bass. that design was 3 years earlier, and it was the P bass. It was the original P bass. Was that?
But I don't think when
shape.
people say that a Strat was ahead of its time, they're thinking that it was ahead of its time 3 years. I think they thought it was a
but it's not the first thing that had that shape.
No, but there's no way that anybody at Fender could have had. Well, maybe there was, but the idea of that it would be so iconic and so something that really defined a genre of the instrument. So yeah. But having said that, the Fender way of attaching necks, the Fender Neck is it's very different from Gibson, and it works great. So let's talk a little bit about necks. I think that's really where.
There's actually. I heard some cats here.
Okay.
Someone actually asked Bobby McKee which neck is the strongest, and Joel Bachhuber.
Joey Badafuku over here.
I didn't screw that up last week. Said that it's hard to argue with the durability and repairability of a Fender over Gibson.
Well, so I think where the Gibson and the Fender really part company is, aside from aesthetics, is neck joint and headstock angle.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the way that the fender is bolted, you can tighten that joint up. You can put screws with metal steel inserts and actually put bolts instead of screws. And yeah, I know it's not really a bolt on neck. If you have something wrong with the neck. So let's talk a little bit about why you would want to have a bolt on neck. And then let's talk about the strength / durability of a bolt on Fender style neck versus a Gibson mahogany angled 3 on a side neck. So there's a handful of reasons why you'd want to have a bolt on neck. One would be, it doesn't matter what the neck joint's like. The neck joint can be super sloppy and it doesn't matter. The screws are holding it on there. It doesn't really matter. Another thing is you can manipulate the neck inside the pocket. So if your strings aren't lining up okay, you can tweak the neck inside the pocket just a little bit and line up everything. If the neck's glued in, you're shit out of luck. You can move the bridge, and that's really it. One of the things that I've talked about in videos before, called "What Leo Fender Got Wrong," was actually something that Leo Fender got right and everybody else got wrong. Is if the neck is bad, the neck breaks. If the neck's twisted or warped, or you need new frets, you just buy a new neck and put it on there.
And that was something that they actually thought was going to happen. He was sure that it would be no problem to drop your neck in a box in the mail and send it back, and they'd send you a new one, and that would be that.
And there's no problem with that.
Done and done.
If but the problem really, what Leo Fender got wrong, and I say this in the video, and I get all kinds of bullshit about it, is that he underestimated how magical people would think these instruments would be one
how
day.
much they fell in love with that neck and would go. And they even mentioned, frets don't last forever. They're going to wear out. Don't replace them. We're going to make this neck out of one solid piece of maple.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a disposable item.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a new one.
The other advantage to a bolt-on neck or a screwed-in neck, a neck that's not glued in, is you could shim the heel, and you could add some. You could angle the neck to be whatever, to match your bridge. So that would be another reason to do that.
Well, somebody actually said that the bolt-on is better for a dramatic guitar smashing.
Have you ever seen someone try to smash a Strat? It doesn't blow up quite like, they're really rugged. You
eventually might break the neck pocket out or bust the body apart,
or you snap the headstock thing. But have you seen that video of Stevie Ray just bashing the fuck out of that in his number one,
surfing on it, where he sets it on the ground and yanks it up by the neck and drops it?
I
haven't seen that video.
No, I haven't.
I don't know.
I'm not really a fan.
So the Les Paul neck has some obvious issues. And I don't want this to turn into where, like, I'm the new Ed Roman. I don't want that to happen. And I don't want everyone to think I'm bashing Les Pauls, because I love those guitars. But there are some issues with the headstock angle that don't need to be there. One of these videos that we do, I want to do how we would redesign the Les Paul if we knew then what we know now and we were around in 1954. Will someone shut that window? Thanks, Lance. So, but that'll be a story for another day.
Do you think some of the issues come from the scarf joint used?
Well, so a Les Paul shouldn't have a scarf joint.
Doesn't have the
No, you can find some Epiphone Les Pauls that have scarf joints. In fact, I think most of them have scarf joints, but the real ones have a one-piece mahogany neck. And so you've got some run out right there where it's the most angled, and you've got that great big area that's carved out for the truss rod nut to go in. So it's 17 to 14 degrees. So it is very likely that if you let that thing fall, which again, someone's going to go, well, just don't let that happen. Okay. You can get a catastrophic neck failure pretty easily. How about this? You can get a catastrophic neck failure on a Les Paul much easier than you can on a Strat.
And I think also much easier than you can on a Gibson acoustic guitar that has the same basic neck construction, because the body's thicker, and the guitar will lay flat.
And the body's so much lighter.
Yes, and also that, which kind of goes to my whole packaging story this week, which we won't discuss.
We
but
won't get
but
into
it's
that.
the same basic idea. Yeah, it has a whole lot more weight, and a Les Paul. I mean, it's not even. It doesn't even come close to sitting flat. It lands directly on the tip of the headstock
just
when it falls back.
So, and for some reason or another, volute is a bad word at Gibson. And they have told me in as many words, you don't use the word volute at the Gibson factory.
We don't say that. What was the word that they did use?
I don't. They made up some other word. It was like tone board or Carina or any of the other number of things that Gibson's made up in the past. But
Yo, djembe.
Yeah.
So you mean Rich Light?
Yeah.
Limba
and
and
volute. Yeah,
something else for volute.
They had a name and they had shaped it
reinforcement.
Slightly differently. This was 3 years ago at the NAMM show. We talked to the guys and anyway, so we're gonna wrap all this stuff up in a tidy bow one way or another before this is all said and done. And one of the things I want to talk about is there was, each Fender and Gibson have made some iconic instruments, but they've also pulled some boners too. Each one of those guys have made some turds.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about those, but let's try to focus on, the stuff that everybody knows about. And then we'll talk about the turd pile.
Which neck profile do you prefer?
What do you mean?
Like, is there one that you gravitate more? Because I mean, obviously everyone has their own like set of neck profiles, but is there a set like do you prefer Gibson necks or Fender necks?
Well, I'll do you one better than that. Working with mahogany is a ton easier than working with maple, and I love maple necks. But man, the tools that we use working with mahogany is a breeze to shape a neck. So that would be one of the areas where I think that Gibson has a little bit of an edge, is that they generally use mahogany in a way. But of course, the way that Fender makes their necks, geez, you can shape so much of those with even if you have a router table, you can get really, really close to pulling that neck off pretty easily. So yeah, I tend to go wider at the nut than thinner. And it used to be that Gibsons were wider than Fenders, and now they're all anywhere from 1 5/8 to 1 11/16, depending on what model it is. And I like to go 860 thousandths at the first fret or more. And both Fender and Gibson have had little necks and great big fat necks. So
it just kind of depends on what.
So I don't think that they're necessarily Fender or Gibson specific, but mahogany is much easier to work than maple. And gosh, I wonder why Gibson uses mahogany for so many things. So let's take some questions, Carrie Ann.
Okay, well, Dominus Svantavidis, I'm pretty confident in that pronunciation, by the way, wants to know what Silent Bob is doing here.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one.
That's the first time you've ever heard that.
Ian has been cultivating the Silent Bob look for many years,
Even
as
before
long
Silent Bob
as we have known him. Yeah.
Yep.
So it just kind of happened. I woke up one day and I'm like, oh, I look like Silent
shit!
Bob.
You're wearing a black hat. He wears a white hat.
Yeah,
right?
I have his hat. On
But
Halloween,
so you're clearly
I was
your
Silent.
own man.
Yeah, but for Halloween, I was Silent Bob, and it fit really well. So I do have his hat.
If I ever shave the beard, we should go to the Handy Mart and we
loiter?
can loiter. Yeah,
Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
You'd be a perfect Jay, you little show off.
I could dance. Hey, do we have an official beer person?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's Lance. Hey, beer wench.
The secret password is hey Lance, could I please have another beer?
Lance. Hey Lance. Could I get another beer from you, please? Hey folks. That makes me mad.
Okay.
I like the part where I can't actually see my mouth move.
That's the
when I
best
make
bit. Bless you,
that
Lance.
voice.
Thank you.
This episode of the Texas Toast Podcast brought to you by. Actually, you know what? We do have kind of a new sponsor, and it is
New sponsor.
it's not really
Read the letter.
it's not really a sponsor as much as it's a guy who we like now, and this is Russ at Music Engineering Services. Stay tuned for a new video about this fretboard that Russ did for me with a freaking laser. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Ian.
And
Thank you, Bob. For fixing
Those
that.
Swiss crosses on there for the like Ski Patrol.
Yeah, that's what they're for. All right, let's take another question about get Fender versus Gibson. Gibson versus Fender.
Oh, wait, I'm supposed to pay attention again now.
Battle
Okay.
Royal.
Smackdown.
Mm-hmm.
I had a good one, and you guys were able on.
Well, look up a question and I'll. So one of my favorite parts about Fender is the whole idea that the company started out as this little tiny thing,
Mhm.
and there were lots of people that were trying to do basically what Fender did, and we make some stuff in the garage and people are starting to buy it. And one of the big stories of all of that is you can make all sorts of stuff, but you have to sell it. And,
Yeah.
and Fender got aligned with the right guy in Don Randall and was able to market that stuff and was able to sell it so fast they couldn't even keep up for a long time and dominated the market.
Yeah.
And that's one of the really neat aspects of the whole Fender story. And they did everything their own way. They didn't want any outside help. They didn't want to share any information. They did it all on their own.
We're only going to steal stuff from Paul Bigsby.
Well, yeah, we're going to steal stuff from Paul Bigsby. We're going to steal stuff from Standell, and
those dudes knew
yeah.
each other. They weren't like, I don't think they were mortal enemies or anything.
No,
all those
and
guys knew Les Paul and Leo Fender and Paul
Yeah.
Bigsby. And all those dudes hung out together. So.
Yeah, well, and so you're talking about the Bigsby headstock, and really the Bigsby headstock is some Croatian headstock that Paul Bigsby appropriated. So
Cultural appropriation.
yeah, and how many ways can you make a 6-string headstock?
I don't know.
3.
It looks like Mrs. Texas Toast has a new question ready to go.
Oh, well, there's
in the queue.
There seems to be a developing common thread
Mhm.
in the questions and/or comments. And this is a good question from Gosling Creative. How much of a difference does the fact that Fender builds its next set of maple versus Gibson, who makes theirs out of mahogany, make to durability?
I think it leads to maple is
It's all about the necks on here, pretty much.
yeah, and that's really where the takeaway as far as construction goes from Gibson versus Fender. I don't want to say that mahogany isn't as strong as maple, but for a guitar neck, it's definitely maple is a better guitar neck as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
What say you?
although we've made 2 Daily Driver Telly necks out of mahogany, and they are really strong too. It's there's a lot less going on a Fender style neck. So much so that you have to have a goofy string tree.
If you look at the 2 trees, it's not like mahogany is so weak that it just fall over all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty rugged, plants.
Lost another mahogany tree.
Yet another mahogany tree.
Wasn't even
bites
that
the
windy.
You
dust.
kind of sound like Al Gore right
I
now.
bumped into it with the lawnmower and it came right over.
Yeah, I mean, so the
And then
mahogany.
a cow farted and the tree fell over.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I really do think that for guitar necks, maple is a more rugged material than mahogany, and that's not because mahogany sucks, because it doesn't. Mahogany's a great wood to work with.
Mahogany school rules.
So what say ye, Ian? You've been making guitars for several years now. What's your go? You've made a couple.
Mhm.
What's your take?
I mean, I definitely like mahogany in the way that it's a strong wood, sure, but I don't know. I like mahogany for.
There you go.
Thanks. I like the mahogany for necks. It's just the way we do it is super simple. Once you have the neck mostly shaped with our routers, we just take it to the machine here.
Yeah, if you're all jigged up to do it, mahogany and a maple too, but yeah.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I like the way maple tools better, as we said before. It just with our tools, it's just like a breeze, just to cut through it.
Yeah, when you start shaping maple, it's like glass coming off the shaper.
So I think something Gibson style necks are way more involved to make than Fender style necks. Fender style necks, in comparison, seemingly take half the time. There's half the wood and half the time.
You know what? I don't know if people are talking about this, but one of my favorite things is truss rods. And if you look at the classic Fender neck and Gibson neck, they had the same truss rod. The same, and they're not wimpy. They're good, but they're not as good as they could have been.
Yeah,
they're as good as they need to be for all those people who love vintage truss rods. How about that?
Yeah.
What else you got?
Well, there's another common thread that Weenie roller.
Weenie rolling. I don't know when
Right.
weenie roller means that we all have to drink.
It's just a thing.
When you say it. No, really, seriously. For real, dog. That Gibsons are just sexier.
So that kind of brings us around to another thing. Gibson, when they came out with the Les Paul, they were needed to compete with Fender. And there was a time when the price of the two guitars, the Fender and the Gibson, weren't that far off. So what can you do to make, not an also ran guitar? And so what Gibson did stuff like binding and, fancy paint on one thing and another kind of paint on the other, and rosewood and inlay and this, that, and the other. And yeah, I think that Les Paul's, there's something cool and classic about the simplest Fender, but man, there's something this dead sexy about a Les Paul to me. And if you don't agree, then that's all right. I mean, you're wrong, but yeah, that's okay.
Gibson stuff is way more old world,
Yeah.
Craftsman, all of that. Fenders are always, at least
Modern.
they're more utilitarian, more end result, and justifies the means kind of instruments that also have their own cool flavor. I dig Tellys. I think they're really neat guitars. I don't find them overly good looking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I really think a Strat is just one of the coolest looking guitars. And I say
Strat
that
really
as a guy
is,
that
yeah.
cannot play a Strat.
Yeah.
That doesn't like to
What
play
is it?
Strats.
What is
but
it about the
it's really
Strat that you
cool.
don't like? Is it the radius? Because we could do a compound radius. on the
Yeah,
Strat
we
for
could
you.
do a compound radius.
Or
Yeah,
an infinity
yeah.
neck.
Yeah.
No, not that. I find myself disagreeing with anything over 9.5 on the radius.
We're going to change that.
It's
We're going to
very
change it to 9.5 inches and then some is what we talk about on our radius. What
Yeah.
radius do you use?
Yeah. It's just it's a really space age looking guitar, and especially at the time. I mean, a
Mhm.
Telly's kind of planky, but
Yeah.
a Strat with all those curves and all that,
Yeah.
it's really neat. And even
And the synchro action tremolo,
yeah,
which is another thing that Leo Fender got wrong. Remember, kids, vibrato is a shift in pitch. Tremolo is a shift in volume. I had to think about that because
every time.
because what Leo Fender did was essentially change the lexicon. Yeah.
So much so that nobody even points it out except for you.
Or gives a fuck. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Carina, yeah.
Yeah. If Gibson can call Limba Carina,
Mhm.
Fender can call vibrato tremolo.
Someone came in here
Well,
the
it's
other
kinda
day.
like when people call like a metaphor a simile.
It's kind of like that.
So I have this really cool Fender at home,
Uh-huh.
Fender Showmaster,
Uh-huh.
and they only made it for a few years in the early 2000s.
You know why? Because they couldn't sell. They were tired of making them. They were
Yeah.
selling so many.
There were just
Yeah.
too many trips to the bank.
Yeah,
Too many trips to the
that's the
bank.
only reason to stop
Yeah.
making something
But-
is
It's a Fender guitar with a set neck, two
Yeah.
humbuckers. It doesn't have they're super Strat. It's like a baritone
Yeah.
scale as well, and it's a cool guitar. It was
We were talking with Ike at Flipside, and one of the more popular Fenders right now is it's either a Telecaster with a bunch of Gibson shit on it, two humbuckers, a stop tail, and a
does he have those
tunematic.
parallel units.
it's
Yeah,
the
some-
Parallel Universe
yeah,
66,
something like that.
I think is what it's
Yeah,
called.
it's got a
Yeah.
Gibson scale, and it's got
Yeah.
it's like, okay, it's a Tele that's a Gibson too. Okay, whatever. Yeah.
It's
What
a
else
fun
you got?
guitar to play,
Well,
for sure.
I need to get a little breath of fresh air. So talk amongst yourself. Here's the topic.
Okay.
PJ Wright said that his Les Paul had some shitty wiring in it, and he
Mm.
yanked it out and put in EMG. I thought Chris might have some wiring. No, nothing.
Do you want me to talk bad about wiring?
Yes,
I hate
Want me to-
basically.
yeah.
Wire
Um,
sucks.
Yeah, wire. Yeah, if you're not using wet string, you're not using. Okay, yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's. I think. There's probably a lot of bad wiring done in guitars. I don't think wire is inherently bad. There's not.
No.
It's just a
you know,
place
it's-
to transfer signal.
Well,
Come
yeah,
all
and it takes
together.
very, very little at the kinds of power that a guitar doesn't put out. It's a
let's bring
passive thing.
this back to Fender versus Gibson, because
Yeah.
there's another thing that Fender does that's pretty much universally Fender, and something that Gibson does that today is identifiable as a Gibson feature, and that's single coil versus humbucking pickups.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could make the case that Fender is your single coil company and Gibson is your humbucker company. Now I know that each one of those guys have done this, that, and the other, and Gibson Les Pauls started out with P90s. I get all that, but at the end of the day, the most popular guitars that those guys make, the Strat and the Les Paul. The Strat has single coil pickups for the most part, and the Les Paul has humbuckers. And I know you can split the humbuckers, but that's a very different sonic kind of thing. Like you don't really like humbuckers at all. For what you do, you want single coils. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm the other way. I like the kind of power and fist in the face that you get from a humbucker, which you can also get from a P90 or a overwound other kind of single coil like in a Jazzmaster. So I mean, why not?
I'm definitely a humbucker guy as well.
Yeah. Is it because you like to buck the hum?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the uses. Yeah. I also like I think I prefer the wiring itself of like a Gibson style guitar versus a Fender style guitar. I like the two-way switch.
That's another great Gibson versus Fender thing is the switch is up here on a Gibson and is usually down here on a Fender. Sometimes they're up here and sometimes they're down here. But for the most part, yeah, we were talking today, right, Chris, about how the Les Paul's pickup selector switch is in a uniquely Gibson location.
Yeah.
And then the SGs is completely different. But the two-way switch versus the blade, do you guys have a preference?
I'm not a huge blade guy. They're okay. I much prefer a three-way
way
toggle.
Easier to drill a half-inch hole.
Yeah. Switch is done. Yeah, I don't know. I don't find I like the clarity that a single coil pickup affords me. I find that humbuckers are a little more cloudy, murky. The weird thing is I don't get a whole lot of bass frequency out of a humbucker traditionally versus and maybe what it's doing is I'm getting more of an even range versus the Fender bass and treble with mid scoop, whatever. So that's my issue with humbuckers, for the way that for the things that I like to play.
You can't get a surf tone.
You can't get a surf tone with a humbucker. But
you don't
what were we
know.
talking about? We were
a switch preference.
We're talking about how much
switch
more
preference?
rocking you can do with a humbucker.
Yeah,
actually,
you can do so much more rocking with a humbucker.
Ask Brett, he'll tell you.
So if I have a guitar and I can get two distinctly usable sounds out of it, I'm good. That's all I want. I don't need 8 million different sounds. I don't want that stuff. I don't want to be confused about what I'm doing. I want to be able to go click, yep, good, click, yep, good. Okay, that's it.
Now, if you and I were awesome players like Brian Nutter, where we could actually utilize 9 different switches and settings on a guitar, then that would be cool. But you and I don't play like Brian Nutter.
No
one's beating down our door to play at the Grand Ole Opry.
Swift.
No. Let's take some questions from the.
Well, there was a question earlier. It's kind of fast and furious, and you guys are awfully,
we're wacky.
Yeah. So, someone was asking about the difference, like any benefits or whatever between carved top Gibsons or flat top Tellys, or what the Tellys are easier to make, or the Fenders are easier to make, and
I would
along those lines.
I would say that Fender style guitars are universally not easier to make, but there's fewer steps than Gibson style guitars.
Yeah. Well, and then there's no real like add belly cuts too. I mean, that's always
there's a little bit of that kind of stuff, but there's no bind. There's
comfortable.
There's no binding. There's no.
So if we were to take a slab of that swamp ash, one of those body blanks down there that we got from Dan at Guitar Wood Experts. It's okay, Lance. We got how fast could we go from that to a Telly that's ready to basically bolt the neck on, no finish, but 15-20 minutes to go with like everything, for every single thing, to include sanding to 150,
round over on the edge. Yeah, everything. And how long would it take you if you were to make a
Les
Les
Paul.
Paul.
It would
with
take
the little curve.
it would take so much more time. Yeah,
Mhm.
especially given the tools that we have. But even if you had a CNC machine,
Mhm.
because there's just so much more happening.
Yeah.
You know.
Would you say one's sexier than the other as far as design goes?
Well, anything that that's done by hand versus CNC is going to be sexier. Oh, you mean which guitar is
Yeah,
sexier?
yeah. I mean, I find the just the carved top on the Les Paul to be a little sexier than say a Tele.
Yeah, but you know what? There's something cool and sexy about a Telecaster too. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I don't have any problem with either one of those. If you know the guitar that I like to make the best is our Challenger guitar. Actually, we were going to talk about the Challenger guitar.
Yeah.
Can we grab one of those because someone asked me, you know, well, which do you like to make, Gibsons
Mhm.
or Fenders? And the fact of the matter is that if I was going to make one guitar for the rest of my life, or if I was going to own one of my guitars, which by the way, I don't actually own a Texas Toast guitar,
You have a Texas Toast. So
but it's for sale.
I think
So,
you own
yeah.
all of them until
Yeah.
somebody
Until
else
somebody's
becomes
like, "I
the
need
owner.
that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many guitars do you own? How many do
Yeah,
we have in stock?
Yeah. So, but they're not mine. I'm just the
No.
custodian of those
Yeah,
guitars
yeah,
until someone comes along and
Mhm.
wants it. So this is
That guitar's losing a lot on camera.
it
Like,
really
you-
is.
you-
I think
you
it's
should- can you
because
make
of
it more like vertical.
here. Anyway, so this is our the Texas Toast Challenger, and this one's a fabric top. But it's a lot of people look at it and go, "Wow, that's a cool telly," and I'm like, you know, okay, I guess it only has one cutaway, so
I mean, so does the Les Paul.
yeah.
Wrong.
This has way more Gibson appointments than it does Fender appointments, and it's got some Fenders. It's got Fender saddles.
Yeah, really, that's it. Traditionally,
And it's flat.
It has the three-way switch up here. On
Yeah.
this one, we put it down here. It's also got a 3-on-a-side headstock,
Mhm.
which is uniquely Gibson. In this case,
24 and
Scale
3/4
is
inch scale. Yep.
Yeah, this guitar doesn't remind me of a Fender at all.
Except for it kind of looks like one here.
A little bit, yeah.
the-
It's a slab, or
Yeah.
it's flat.
The other thing that a lot of people don't really realize is that the Gibson electrics are more like shaped like a jumbo acoustic. They're round on the butt, and Fenders are flat and shaped more like a dreadnought. I mean, they have cutaways, but you see what I mean? So the Gibsons are rounder through the ass end here because I like big butts, and I cannot lie. And there's people twerking.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
This is an excellent comment.
Perfect.
Joseph Caswell says a Les Paul is Ginger and a Telly is Marianne.
You
The
know,
Strat is Lovey Hell.
you know, a lot of people ask me,
No,
get
man.
Ginger and
Hell.
Marianne, and I'm like, it's all about Lovey Hell.
How did she get a millionaire husband?
That's right.
Boom.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit more about construction techniques and lumber used, or you know what? Actually, no, belay that. Let's skip ahead to we've talked a lot about the classic designs and what was so great in the 50s and early 60s. Let's jump ahead to the dark days of these two companies, and let's jump to the 70s. There was a time when, you know, right now everybody wants vintage everything, and so 70s guitars from Fender and Gibson are cool. Well, 25, 30 years ago, nobody wanted that shit. Nobody wanted a 70s Gibson or Fender.
No.
Unless it was a flying V.
Even then, I don't think they made the
Flying
V's in the
V2.
70s.
No, they made
Oh,
them.
that's
They made them in
right.
the 40s.
No, the
50s?
58 was when
Yeah.
they came out with them. But yeah, I don't know. They stopped making them right away because they weren't exactly crazy popular.
You know what? It was waiting for the 80s.
It was.
Oh, Lance, never mind.
But in the 70s, Gibson and Fender both made some turkeys. And so the Les Paul construction changed to, you know, multiple pieces of wood, not one piece of mahogany and two pieces of maple and nice carving
Mhm.
and one piece necks. They all had pancake bodies and laminate necks, and if they had volutes, but that's kind of where the cool thing ended for the 70s Les Pauls. And I get it. You know what? Everybody cool in the 70s played 70s Les Pauls, unless you had an old one. But there was a time when you couldn't give that shit away.
Yeah. And I think,
And Fender was not immune from that. And in
No.
fact, Fender's dicky guitars went well into the 80s because they were trying.
Yeah.
They stopped competing
until
with
85,
Gibson,
Yeah.
and they started competing with Kramer and Hamer and all these other guys who were making super strats, and we're like, we don't know what to do, and we can't get Floyd. So
Yeah. And I think a lot of that 70s hate is because the guitars weren't consistently good like they were previously. I think you can, and I think that's where a lot of that, you got to play a bunch of them before you find a good one kind of stuff
QC
started.
wasn't the same.
QC was horrific from both companies, and I don't think that it's necessarily the construction techniques, although gluing lots of pieces of wood together and
there's
that
nothing
is,
wrong with that.
no, but it does change the overall feel of the instrument. But the QC was just
Well, and how much money
terrible.
can you really save gluing all that shit together?
because it still takes time. And,
Yeah.
and last time I checked,
Time is money.
Yeah.
and glue is money.
Mhm.
Especially like fish glue.
Yeah, they're not growing horses on trees,
That's right.
and they're not growing trees, and
For business.
so yeah, I think a lot of it's just QC.
It was not unheard of to get a Les Paul with a maple neck in the 70s. In fact, it might have been easier to get a Les Paul with a maple neck than it was to get a Les Paul with a mahogany neck.
Why do you think that is?
Well, if they were having trouble getting mahogany
Yeah,
for
and
whatever reason, and they
they're
had
using
to use 4/4 and glue a
Yeah.
buttload of it together, then that'd be
pancake
why.
bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be. There's always that looking back at things and they don't make them like they used to. Yeah, you're right. They don't make 60 Buicks anymore because that's a kind of a goofy car. Okay.
And then there's a lot of romance associated with stuff. So they don't make them like they used to. Yeah, they never made them like they used to for some people.
What was that like country song? Like, if I was as good as I was back then.
Yeah, I'm not as good as I was, but I'm better than I used to be. No, I don't
Yeah,
know.
something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not as fast as I used to be. Anyway,
I like guacamole.
what so you got some more questions there, Carrie-Ann?
Well, here's a natural question that I'm surprised hasn't come up sooner, and what about GNL?
Well, what about GNL? Or what about Ernie Ball?
It's
Or
like
what
they got
about Paul
together
Reed
and had a
Smith? Or
baby.
what about Heritage? There's a lot of those guitars that, again, we're trying to keep the focus of this conversation to those two particular brands. GNL makes a fine guitar, and we can talk a little bit about that. What would be great would be to have Ike from Flipside come on and sit with us and talk. Who knows what he would talk about, but
Yeah.
but we could talk about all these different brands, and he's got them all in his shop. So if you're in Denver and you're not shopping at Flipside, you're failing as a citizen. And if you and they also do a brisk online business. So do you see how I easily transitioned into a plug for one of our
episode is brought to you by
this segment of our so let me go completely off the range here. One of the things that I am working on is kind of a sponsorship for the Texas Toast podcast, and not in terms of money for us, but deals for everybody watching. So we're working with a bunch of companies right now. We've got half a dozen, and maybe we have 6. No, we've got 6 or 7 companies that are going to be giving us promo codes, discount codes that you can order stuff online and get. I don't know, it's going to be something 5-10%, something like that. So we're working with Dan at Guitar Wood Experts, Ike at Flipside Music. I've got some calls in to a couple other people, but those two guys have said they want to do it. So stay tuned for promo codes from Texas Toast Guitars, our YouTube channel, and the specifically the podcast for stuff like that, because that's going to be cool shit. What else you got, Carrie-Ann?
I have a relatable comment.
Okay.
Dirty Knobs. Nothing says love like a 25-pound Les Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think the heaviest Les Pauls were definitely the 80s Les Pauls. Oh my, I know I had a 14-pound Les Paul once, and it was an 80, 83 or something. Yeah.
Where do you think that weight comes from? Is it them not waiting long enough for the wood to dry?
It comes from a lot of stuff. Yeah.
I think it's just the wood in general.
Because there's mahogany and then there's mahogany.
The other funny thing about that is, back when we didn't have scales, so the idea of a 12-pound Les Paul or a 14-pound Les Paul is a distinct possibility. But if you actually weigh those guitars, they're not that much heavier than a regular guitar. They just feel that much heavier. It's a big percentage. Like if you, let's say an 8-pound, average guitar, if you add 2 pounds, that's 25% more weight. So it's a 10-pound guitar. It feels way heavier than 10 pounds because it's 25% is heavier.
It's sort of like if you have a J frame and you step up to a Colt Detective Special.
I was going to just mention
you
that
have 20% more capacity in the cylinder.
Right. Yeah. So I had a before I had a scale, I had a Jazzmaster that I'd made out of northern ash, baseball bat ash, and it was so flippin' heavy compared to my other one, and I was like, oh my god, this guitar's got to weigh 11 pounds. It's got to be at least 11 pounds, maybe even 12. And I got a scale, 9.5 pounds. Not that much heavier, but it felt so much heavier.
That the fish scale?
Yeah,
Not the fish
no, it was a
scale.
real, it was a legit scale, digital scale.
That's like the worst drug dealer in the world.
Yeah.
Scale. Everything weighs the same thing.
Okay,
Or
5
Empty
pounds.
envelope.
5
8
pounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was a real scale.
So we've talked a lot of shit about Gibson. Let's talk about, because Fender's pulled some boners too. Let's talk about some of the Fender. One of the greatest Fender things that they ever had was the Strat trim. Now you're gonna disagree and say that the Jazzmaster trim is better, but so many things are based on the Strat trim. And there were, man, in the late 70s and early 80s, they had some really some missing.
Don't you hate the Mustang trim?
Yes. That's the worst trim they did.
Yeah, see, everybody, that's another, everybody thinks, I love Les Pauls and Strats. Well, they made a lot of stuff besides Les Pauls and Strats.
So what
remember
trim?
there was a time when you couldn't get a Strat with what we would now call a vintage trim, the American Standard, which I don't think it was called the American Standard back then.
It was just a Strat.
Just a Strat.
Yeah.
And remember they had the Strat.
Yeah.
It had, in the early 80s, they had stuff that was big and clunky and kind of looked like a locking trim, but it wasn't. You remember what I'm talking about, Lance?
Yeah.
And it was, oh my God, they were awful. And just give the people what they want.
And there was one, and I get them confused because everybody else gets them confused too. They had one called the Smith Strat, which was this return to a somewhat economical Strat, and it didn't have the football jack anymore. It had it had a volume tone, and it plugged into where the second tone was, and it had this trim that was like by committee or something. It was just and it had fine tuners, but it was just everything about it was cheap.
Everything we could do to not violate Floyd Rose patents. But look as much like a Floyd Rose.
And it's apparently it started out as a pretty neat trim, and it slowly devolved because they couldn't make it cheap enough. It slowly devolved into this unusable piece of junk. And that's the story.
And I want to say the metallurgy was really sucky too, because it wasn't machined out of anything.
It was pot metal. It was cast and plated and
Hot Wheels cars.
Yeah. I know a guy at Hot Wheels.
You could make
Mattel. We should learn about that technology. Yeah, we used to stamp our own machines. Yeah.
So and
I have a great Matchbox story someday.
It's a good one. Yeah,
I'll have to tell you.
Oh, you know Matchbox 20?
So
no Matchbox cars.
I'm getting out my official keep it on track squirt bottle.
Well, here it is. Here's an excellent comparison.
Okay.
I'm going to slightly paraphrase.
All right.
That comparing Gibson to Fender is like comparing apples to Microsofts.
Well, in many ways it is. So we've really been kind of keeping this, chicken and steak and comparing the good stuff from each company. But each company has made great guitars, and each company has made some hunks of shit, And it's funny because they would start out making what they made back in the old days, what they morphed into, and then they both kind of eventually came around and decided to make the guitars people wanted to buy, which I don't know. The problem with making guitars people want to buy is people just buy them. And so it was a fairly recent phenomenon that, you can get a vintage style Strat or a vintage style Les Paul or Telly or SG or whatever. And why did it took both those companies so long to, acquiesce to giving people
I think
what they like.
I think they kept looking across the aisle and going, well, they're making this, we better make that.
Sure. Because
why would we not,
like Ian said, Fender has made set neck Les Paul basic guitars that are shaped like Fenders, and Gibson's made super Strats and all kinds of wacky stuff. So.
Well, and one of my favorite guitars is called the Jazz Master because they wanted to try and garner some of they wanted to get some of the guys that played jazz to play a Fender.
Did any jazz player at all ever play a jazz?
No, they even took some around to some guys, and they're like, yeah, it's a neat guitar, but it's not jazz.
Okay,
it's not what we play.
It's got a rhythm circuit.
Yeah, and that was kind of the start of the. Well, what are they doing? Well, we got to do that. Yeah. Well, they have humbuckers. We need humbuckers. Yeah. So,
what else we got, Carrie Ann?
Well, Tiki Torch wants to know why don't I ever see hickory necks? It seems like it would be a perfect wood. I heard Fender used to use it on rare occasions when they ran out of maple, and now I'm upset. This is me now, that the barbecue guitars aren't made of hickory.
Oh, yeah. I would say the reason that you don't see hickory necks is you would be changing out tools at every turn. So it is really hard.
It's like oily too.
I don't know that it's oily, but it's one thing to cut hickory, cross cut hickory, or straight cut hickory, but to shape it, it's really tough on cutting tools. And if you had a deadhead sander because you were an old school factory, you would be burning through 36 grit belts like it wasn't no thing. So that's why I would imagine you don't see a lot of hickory necks.
That kind of gets into the whole, and we don't have to talk about it today, but it would be a good one for another time. The reason that the companies use the woods they use,
absolutely,
and how it has
a great one,
absolutely nothing to do with how they sound. It has everything to do with procurement and ease of tooling.
Yeah.
And I think I just basically did the whole podcast.
Yeah, if we were gonna do one, yeah. Ease of machining, and and can you get it? Or at some point they're like you're a victim of your own success too. You're like, well, we want to keep using mahogany, but mahogany's really expensive. Well, tough shit, because everybody thinks we need to use that now. Yeah,
well, now especially, now they're pretty much
you're
bound
using that
to tradition in everything that they do. Yeah, one of my favorite things about guitars is the pick guards are all held on with screws. There's like 9 million screws on a guitar. How are we going to put that plate on? I don't know, a bunch of screws. Yeah, all right. Yeah, cool. How about some sort of magnet thing? No,
a bunch of screws.
No, yeah. Could we make it press fit Velcro? Nope, screws.
I know, screws.
Screws. Yeah, I got
Magnets?
these little screws. Yeah. Number 4 screws. Okay.
So let's back up to neck construction. One of the things that a lot of people love about Gibson is the deep set neck tenon. I hate it. I think that's one of the worst neck joints you could use, because it's so, there's all kinds of other weird little shit that if you just did them the way that, basically if you did an oversized Fender neck joint like what we use on the Challenge, actually all of the guitars that don't, unless someone is specific and says I gotta have a Fender neck joint or I gotta have a mortise and tenon neck joint, we'll use just a wedge fit. And Gibson has used those on lots of guitars in the past, and Fender still does on basically all their guitars. They're just bolted in. But it's funny, people go, well, can you make a set neck? Well, yeah, actually a set neck is even easier to do than a properly done set neck is easier to do than a properly done bolt neck in some ways. You know what I mean? So
weenie roller.
Oh, geez. And what I mean is, you've got what, 1 cent worth of glue holding it on instead of 4 or $5 worth of screws and plates and shit like that.
Yeah, and if you were making the plate, yeah, and we've actually glued in necks because of that exact thing. Yeah, 3 cents worth of glue. Okay.
Yeah.
Just
So-
on a
So
price
just because
influence
just
challenge.
because you see a set neck doesn't necessarily mean that it is better than a screwed together guitar.
Yep.
What else we got, Carrie? How many people are watching? Thanks to everyone for watching, by the
There's
way.
68, and that means you do me, and I'll owe you one.
Ooh.
Oh, now there's 70. Oh, I'm so provocative.
You
I
are.
just jumped out like that.
I want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you guys are having fun with this podcast as much as we are. I love doing the podcast, and I love having everybody here, and I love having my squirt bottle.
And this
That's very
pen,
threatening.
yeah,
I know it.
this remote control.
I like having my glasses.
This
here.
is all I
like-
need.
Like having
this
all my
pencil.
stuff right
Business
here.
card.
You guys are butts.
So, speaking of business cards, no, I'll change this.
All right. So what?
Joel Bachhuber said he made an Explorer out of oak in high school.
I bet that.
I
was
bet you
heavy.
that weighed nothing.
Yeah, when we were talking about 14-pound guitars, that I would actually imagine might have weighed 14 pounds.
I'm just curious what your like chiropractor bills are like today.
He's like, really strong guy.
It's like a
'cause
Zach
when he was
Wild type
young,
guitar.
Yeah.
He
Yeah, you
wants
got to be
all
a
those
Viking to
Viking,
play
yeah.
that thing.
yeah,
You have to be a Norseman.
Mm-hmm.
The Red Special has a lot of oak in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not a very big guitar.
No, it's a little guitar.
It is, and it's thin, and well, it's not thin.
Have you ever
but
seen
it's,
there?
you
There
know,
was an
anyway.
interview like someone was talking to Brian May about that guitar, and he was like, kept asking, well, have you ever played any other guitars? Have you ever thought about playing other? He's like, no, I like this one, and
he
he
made
just
it too.
yeah,
right?
him and his father made it. Yeah,
over,
and he was
over
just
3 years.
relentless. Like, well, why don't you ever play anything else? Just fucking shut up. This is the guitar I like. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I find that whole idea very, very compelling.
that?
Guys that have played the same guitar for virtually their entire professional career, and there's not very many of
It's
them.
pretty rare. Yeah.
and it's really neat. I think because it's and a lot of people are constantly looking for something, and
here's
those
a
guys
picture
have
of me and
found
Dick
it.
Dale.
Yeah, and here's a picture of me and Dick Dale.
If
Exactly.
you're
yeah.
if you're gonna keep looking for something, I think you just need to practice more.
Yep. I think you need to if you don't like your current guitar, you need to have a custom guitar made.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, that's
There's
ultimately my point.
There's nothing that
is-
will do what you yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing is how customizable are certain guitars and
Oh, Fender versus Gibson.
Yeah. When people talk about, Fenders are basically just bolt together, modular bullshit.
Mhm.
And I think that's really funny
Why?
because they're really, they are, but they aren't. There's no less,
The design work to
Yeah,
make as many of those guitars as they did back in the old days with tools that they had is
Mhm.
remarkable.
Yeah. And really, I mean, they're talking about one thing. They're talking about neck joint is really
Yeah.
the only thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because you can swap humbuckers and tuners and
Mhm.
bridges and all that with Gibsons. It's just the neck, and so it bolts on versus glued in. Okay, yeah, whatever. I guess that's cool. So, or that a neck that a bolt-on neck is somehow inferior to a glued-in neck.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is ridiculous.
It is. It's hogwash. I used to believe it, and I used to buy into it mostly because the guy that I worked for originally was anti bolt on neck. I still to this day I don't know why. But
Even if
hated
he
it.
wanted you want him to repair your bolt on, you were getting a glue it in.
That's not necessarily what happened, but I have heard some horror stories that there were some necks that got glued in. I don't know that that's true, but yeah, there are people who swear up and down that it was. I don't know, but yeah.
Gives them back their guitar. Don't have to worry about those
Yeah,
pesky
don't have those
screws.
pesky screws anymore. What?
This is funny. Andrew St. Pierre said, talking about the guy that has the same guitar.
This is talking about the guy his
Right, it
his
says-
guitar
he's
was
like, he says regarding Brian May, never shoot skeet against a guy who only owns one shotgun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Andrew, we had your guitar was in the cradle here earlier in the podcast. I don't know if you saw that, but it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is it? Get it back
Monkey
in.
There.
Monkey's got it.
You can show it off. Give it a spin.
Silent Bob
so-
has the guitar.
So this is the top and this is the back, and it is blonde on the back. and you can see the binding just
It's got-
barely.
It's got a little see-through on the back.
It's totally
Probably doesn't
see-through.
show through.
Yeah, it
show
probably
up on
doesn't.
the-
But yeah, so that guitar
No, I
needs to
think
get
it's probably coming through like kind of TV yellow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that guitar needs to be buffed and shipped.
Mhm.
Chris is going to Moab this week, though.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I'll probably break an arm. Be out for the next
I
3 or
hope
4
that
months.
doesn't happen.
I don't.
You
Think,
know what I hope
don't
doesn't
think-
happen? I hope you don't have to cut your arm off with a multi-tool.
I'm not going to that canyon, so I
Oh,
think I'm
good.
okay. And I'm not bringing a multi-tool.
You want me to loan you a multi-tool? Just
no,
in
that's
case you
why I
have to
won't
cut your
bring a
arm off?
multi-tool. Yeah, because
Okay.
if I come too prepared, things like that will happen.
Good idea.
So Andrew said he did see it and it's gorgeous.
Mm.
Good.
And so someone wants to know if you've ever cut fret slots with a Japanese saw.
Indeed. I
Mhm.
have several Japanese saws that
Many.
are particularly adept at that job.
One of the first projects that you and I did
Mhm.
was putting a new fretboard on an old guitar that I had, and you showed me how. You said, "Okay, here's the jig, here's the saw,"
right, here's how you do
and I was like, and you said it'll seem really fun for the first couple frets, and then it'll get really onerous.
really
And it got
sucky.
really bad really fast,
Yeah.
and I got about 4 frets in, and by the end I was like, this
This
sucks.
sucks, dick.
Yeah, there's got to be a better way.
Is there a better way?
No.
Freaking lasers.
You
Yeah.
said it wrong.
Freaking lasers.
Power saw is where it is. Yeah.
You might as
Moving.
well just say screen print without
Yeah.
doing
Yeah. Hand saw suck.
Yeah, hand saws.
It's like
blow ass.
cutting. The first thing that we had Ian do when he first started here was cut a
My
I-
body blanked out
yeah,
with the
yeah,
saw.
it was
Didn't we have him pick up dog poop first?
well, yeah, after
Okay,
that.
yeah.
And then he went and he got us beer.
with no bag.
And then
just
we gave him
hands.
a really dull crosscut saw and told him to cut a
I don't remember
2-inch
giving him a
2-inch
dull
thick
saw.
8-inch board. The saw's right
right
there.
there.
I can see
But
it.
I don't
yeah.
remember that it was dull.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it was. but
It's not
took
it's not
forever.
dull, but it's a better story.
it was we didn't give him a dull saw and be like, oh, here you go. It's, yeah,
so it
there's
was yeah, cut this piece of wood, and he's over there and he's zipping in. I'm like, man, I need to show this kid how to cut. So I grabbed the saw and I'm over there, shika, 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 and
This
like-
saw's
like,
dull as
yeah.
fuck.
Okay, you got it, Ian. No, why don't you finish that, Chris? All right.
it.
Shika, shika, shika. See,
Shika,
it's just
shika,
it's
shika.
just that easy. Now you do the next one.
Well, so remember you came over and you had a body that you wanted to work on. And
It was a very.
it was all right though. It was,
It was
yeah.
a train car
Yeah.
floor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was exactly what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I-
boxcar.
yeah, I-
boxcar
25
wood.
pound guitar.
I got reclaimed wood.
Yeah.
From the place off the Highway 36.
Yeah,
If you're
yeah.
in Colorado, and I bought it, and I had no idea what
You
I was
gave it a
looking
shot
for.
though.
Yeah.
That was cool.
I
Yeah.
gave it a shot. I cut it out. At the glue joints for
Eh.
the body were a little off. I tried hand planing it.
Oh, hand planing's fun, right?
Oh no,
Yeah.
it sucked.
I think you
Yeah.
just didn't have a good enough hand plane.
Oh yeah, no, I use like
I don't think
the
there is such a thing as a
lowest-
good enough hand plane.
lowest tier Harbor Freight hand plane.
Oh, so you know it's good.
Yeah, I think I spent like $20 on it.
Oof.
Yeah.
So you threw away $20 on a hand plane because that was the only time you ever used it, right?
Yeah.
You still own that hand
Yeah.
plane.
It's at my dad's
You own
house.
it, but
It's
you
my
don't use
dad's
it.
sucky
Yeah.
hand plane.
But yeah, and then I brought it over, and you're like, "Hey, good spirit, kid, but let me show you how it's
You know
done."
what? You at least you
Go pick
tried
up
and
dog
we
poop.
and we
Yeah,
you picked up some dog turds. No, Ian
Yeah,
came
for
over
like
and
5 minutes.
I know it was hardly any dog turds. He came over with at least something, you know. I don't know if you know this, but I had a bunch of people asking me, "Hey, are you will you teach me how to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, come over." And when you sent me a thing saying, "Hey, will you teach me how to do this?" Yeah, sure, come over. You're the first one who came over.
I also said I will,
And we
clean.
didn't instantly hate you.
I
Yeah,
also
that's right.
said I will clean. I
And
just
that's
wanna
been
learn.
how long has it been? 2.5
2
years?
Yeah, almost 3 years this summer.
Wow, that's cool. Cool. Yeah, because it was late in the summer, right?
And we've watched you grow up into a fine young man, and
That's right.
we just can't tell you how
We've
how
watched
proud
your
of
hair
you
grow.
you are.
Fine
Yeah,
young
yeah.
cannibal.
Basically, we've just
Your
watched you
beard.
get hairier. Is really what it's all about.
Yeah, you went
Yeah.
from looking like Bob,
Bob,
Belcher to
yeah.
Silent Bob.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's of
That's
the
right.
the Boballution.
Baba-palooza.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mrs. Texas Toast, are there any more questions that we're into our first hour, well into the first hour.
Well,
Only 7 more to go.
Probably.
7 more to go.
I like Fender because it starts with an F, and my last name starts with an F. and it
Your uncle-
also the same
Uncle
number
Fester.
of letters. And my name ends with an R too.
This is Chris.
And
Yeah.
and one time I bought a guitar and it was a Fender.
Iwata has a
Yeah.
So, well, Bailey Watts is asking, how about super glue finish on the SRV Strat? Is it worth it? We were just
Super
talking
glue
about
finish
super
on an
glue.
SRV Strat.
That's
We
like
were
a
just
lot of
talking
super
about
glue.
super glue.
I don't understand what
It's-
what a super glue finish on an SRV Strat is.
So
I don't
maybe
know.
they have an SRV strat, not like that they're replicating and then using super glue as
Super glue is a bitch to sand.
Yeah, super glue is
It's so
way
it's like a
way too
it's like
hard.
sanding a rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. Super glue is not a finish. Super glue is an adhesive.
It's a
Duct
problem.
tape is a
it's-
finish.
Yeah.
Super glue is a solution to a giant crack in the body that's
Yeah.
sucking up.
Super glue is
paint.
the first step in hacking your way back to where you should be.
Basically
in
a
a lot of
poplar
ways.
guitar.
I don't know.
Leftover
Maybe it's
cabinets that-
probably there's probably something. He'll tell us. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Super
wanna
glue's
know
not
more.
One of my favorite things.
It's there's a guy who used to comment on some of these videos and he said he used super glue for everything. Okay, cool. That's fine. But when I say this, I'm not trying to be a dick about it, but super glue is not a finish. Finish
No.
is a finish, and can it be pressed into service as such? Sure.
So
Yeah.
can Bondo.
So can anything, oil, or there's lots of things that you could use that are easier. You don't have to have a spray rig to use it to put an oil finish on there. You know what I mean? You don't have to buff it to put an oil finish. And I think that if you go to some of those forums, guys talk about super glue finishes, and okay,
I think it'd be
don't
intriguing
know.
to see what it does as a finish because it's not a typical.
or what it does that like a true oil finish or
Right.
a tongue oil finish doesn't do just as well or better. If you want to put super glue all over your guitar, I'm sure, yeah, go nuts. But I don't know what it actually.
You'd have to have a lot of
do.
super glue. out.
Yeah, and whenever you bust open a
They
lot
come
of
in
super
like bags
glue,
that look like Capri Sun juice bags. You can
Yeah.
get super glue like that and just
Hmm.
well, and if you catch a wrong whiff of a big amount of super glue, you
then
can
it's
really
almost like a metallic
you-
paint.
well, you can jack yourself up like instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way faster than lacquer or any of the other fun solvents.
So I
Yeah.
would not recommend using super glue as a finish.
No.
I would rather spray lacquer than use super glue as a finish, and I hate
Well,
lacquer.
Yeah, you can get lacquer at Home Depot or whatever. I mean,
There's
Mhm.
yeah, you can go to
if
the
you're
a
worried
home
about
center
finishes and like I
get,
can't find anything but super glue, you might
yeah, you can
consider lacquer instead.
because that's another thing. Super glue isn't going to add. It's not going to be in colors. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be brown or maple. So you can do an oil finish way easier than a super glue finish and get all the benefits of a sealed up thing. But unless you just really like super glue, I would say don't do that.
Well, apparently, according to Google, it's a
Mhm.
finish. But
Oh, okay.
here's a great question that I'm going to preempt the answer to is how would you finish an ash neck? The durable thin finish
You
I
know,
would not make a neck
out of ash,
ash.
body. Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't do that either. And it's not because you can't, and not because you wouldn't be happy with the result, but there's no payback.
No.
It's not like you can't get maple that's sized and the same money or less even. In fact, I want to say the last time I bought maple, 5/4 maple was $6 a board foot. Ash is 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know there's any real reason
Wouldn't
to do
there
that
be more
except you think
steps
it's
like grain filling that you'd have to
Yeah,
do
potentially,
with the
yeah.
ash
So
versus-
unless you just wanted to try an ash neck,
Mm-hmm.
then because it's cool, then rock on. By the way, if you want an ash neck, then do it. Yeah, I would say the best way to do it would be Semtex sealer, and until you fill most of it, and that's it. Scuff it back and rock on.
Yeah, the cool stuff about the Simtex sealer, I have it on my bass that I made, maybe last year.
Mhm.
It feels like those Fender necks. It's satiny and
Mhm.
it has that good thin finish on it. It feels like a cool Fender
And
neck
it's-
if that's what you're going
It's
for.
it's way easier to do than, especially if you've got any way to spray it, or even weenie roll it.
Weenie roller.
You could actually weenie roll on a SimTech finish. You could buy a quart of that stuff from the guys at SimTech. You know, we should see if we can get SimTech to get in on our code.
Can we take advantage of that?
Oh, somebody,
Because we
somebody
pay
earlier
full boat
offered
plus shipping
to
for
be
that.
like a sponsor, and he wants to send some real Canadian beer down here.
Oh, beauty. Who was it though?
Oh
man?
yeah, so beer from the it's a
that
beer
it's
truck.
that whole beer thing
Molson?
though.
Oh,
Greetings from the
jeez.
Great White North.
Is it
Is it Ben Combs? He's actually got a podcast on
No,
Sundays.
actually, it's way up there, and I forgot about it until you
I
said
love that guy way up there.
He
what was the
said
beer
that.
in Strange
In Elsinore.
Peru?
In
Elsinore.
Strange-
Is it
Elsinore beer.
Elsinore?
Yeah,
12
A 2-4.
Elsinore beers,
Matt
please.
used to play on their hockey team.
I
Yeah.
did, yeah.
If I didn't have puke breath, I'd kiss you.
Are there any questions that are about Fender versus
well,
Gibson
here's
or
funny.
any or
It's
does
a-
anyone want
or-
me to spray somebody with my
Your cat
my
bottle.
squirt bottle? Oh, wet t-shirt contest, Lance. You're up.
He's got some perky boobs.
It's
No.
wet So
Well, here's something on
Okay.
topic. Jim Ford said that he used super glue with a pine and redwood guitar body, and it came out great, and he will never do it again.
I don't know whether or not that's bitching. I'm glad it's great.
But I get to never do it again. It's like
I do too.
sanding a
Yeah.
rock.
Well, it's a lot
Right.
like when people use epoxy and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, it worked," and I worked myself to death.
yeah.
I'm glad
Yeah.
it worked. Jim, I'm happy that it worked well. And I would love to know more about why you won't do it again. But I'm pretty sure I do know why.
I did some touch up today with super glue, just little bits,
Mhm.
and I built it up and then I scraped it
It was
back.
more for filler because you shot clear over it, right?
Yeah, and it wasn't finished. I shot clear over it, but I have also repaired things before, like small cracks and things with super glue, and then you scrape it and you polish it, and it
The
works
stuff-
okay. But man, it takes so long.
The
It's
stuff
so
that Dan
like,
Erlewine is able to
focused
do with
on.
super glue for repair is unbelievable.
He's
Yeah.
also a wizard.
He is a fucking wizard. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That dude, that dude's forgotten more about fixing shit than I'll
Yeah.
ever know.
I got the it's like the StuMac how to build a guitar.
Sure,
It's
yeah.
got some old pictures of Dan with
Uh-huh.
like Hawaiian t-shirt.
Oh, that
Like,
dude is amazing. Yeah.
He's been in the game so long.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we like to have guests live via satellite, and I want to say Eric from StuMac is willing to do that with. And by the way, for as good as Dan is, Eric is totally awesome. His repairs are crazy good too. He knows his shit.
he's like the young the young guard.
He's the
now.
fixing to be Dan Erlewine.
Carry it on
Mhm.
2.0.
He absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, because he learns all the new stuff, and he's
Yeah, and yeah, he's got a
He's
great
got-
resource there, and he's
Mhm.
he's an awesome guy too.
yeah.
What else we got, Carrie Ann?
Well, Chris Hatton wants to know what is the top selling Texas Toast guitar.
Oh,
Don't ask Matt questions about himself.
I think we do mostly guitars that people want us to build.
so that would be the Texas Toast Skunk Works.
yeah. We build a lot of. Right now, it seems like Flying V's are the best selling guitar because we're
everywhere.
yeah. Everywhere you look, there's a Flying V.
There's V's. We're knee
Yeah.
deep in V's in here.
hey, oh, God, I can't do it. I can't do it on command. Yeah. There's V's everywhere. We're gonna be knee deep in V's.
There are a
We
lot
are
of
hip
Vs.
deep in V.
If you want to be knee deep in V's, get a Texas
Yeah,
Toast
MZ.
guitar.
There are a lot of V's. So yeah, the guitar that's the most popular is the one that's. It's gonna sound dumb, but it's the one that's the custom one for you. And what I mean by that is it's not. No one likes my shape, right?
And by
yet.
the way, someone said it doesn't look anything like a Fender or
Oh,
Telly
yeah.
before. Yeah.
And our version of the Telecaster that we call the Daily Driver is every so often we'll sell some of those, but they're not exactly flying off the shelves either. What really happens is people go, "Hey, can you make this?" or "Could you do this for me? I got this body that I really like."
Or like Lance.
Yeah, Lance, we redid we should actually let's get Lance's
Lance,
Hamer
get in
Californian. So we redid a guitar for Lance is here in the studio with us. In the studio.
I'll jump in.
So you can
Lance is
hear
now on the mic.
you can
on the
hear
mic.
Lance.
Check.
Lance, what's the deal with this Hamer? Why were we having to recreate it?
So this is a reproduction of a guitar I bought from Hamer.
Like you're a little bit
27
high. You
years
need to come. There you go.
It's-
Or you could move the thing. Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna go sit down. I
Okay.
think. So this is a guitar that is something that was designed by Hamer. It's called a Californian, and they made them from the late '80s through the early '90s, and then they sent them overseas and made a bunch of them, super Strat style. I bought one as my very first custom guitar, and so I had a bunch of things done that I wanted: color, oversized frets. I wanted some lower profile neck. I wanted, single pickup instead of multiple pickups.
The original the Hamer Californian traditionally had a single coil in this neighborhood. Yes.
Exactly. And so we did a bunch of things, and I asked for some other things that Hamer wouldn't do, which was fine. I've learned later over time that some of those paths that I was going down were not related to custom building of guitars. They were related to things that were neat ideas in building guitars and have, been fleshed out as bogus. So,
but what happened to the one? Like, why are we having to remake this one?
So
Because there was an unfortunate incident, right?
not an unfortunate incident.
Okay.
It was more like a lack of vision. I decided in my blind stupidity, I decided to sell it, and it went away and never came back. And so I was looking for the exact reproduction of my very first custom guitar, and the folks at Texas Toast here were happy to do it. They're Hamer fans.
I'm not going to say we were happy to do it. But
Yeah, really.
Money talks. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, there were some arguments between Matt and I, and
cried.
I was like,
I ain't doing
you
that
know, yeah, I don't know what a hammer is, and I'm not making one.
shit. This was actually one of my favorite Texas Toast Skunk Works guitars, because Lance came in with a vision of what he wanted, but it wasn't just like, hey, can you make it like a Hamer? And because you wanted the neck to be a Hamer stress neck style, and you wanted the boomerang inlay, and you wanted the headstock, and you wanted the one piece mahogany, and there was a bunch of stuff that you wanted, but you were also not like completely locked into it has to be exactly like the guitar that I had. So one of the things that we did was we took a page from my favorite builder, Dan Armstrong, and we continued the neck pocket all the way into the pickup area here. And Chris just got the paint on this, and we thought, it would be super cool to show off that this is the neck here. And so it's not quite a neck through, but it's definitely not a bolt on or traditional set neck guitar.
No, exactly. And so, honestly, it was just a joy to be able to have somebody who was willing to take up the call.
One of the funny things too, like Lance would come in and you'd be like, these cutaways were deeper on mine. Can you make them deeper? Okay. And we were kind of following, because we didn't have templates to make a Hamer Californian. One of our friends did, he took a picture from the internet, and I said, size it until this area here is whatever it is, 2 1/4, 2 1/8, whatever.
Exactly.
And so he made the body outline, and we went from there. And it's the absolute, it's my idea of what a true custom guitar is, even though we're recreating something.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to point out here is we didn't know where to put the knob. I had an idea of where it was in my memory. And so you were like, well, what do you want?
How about here?
How about here? And I'm like, that works for me.
Maybe, Lance, that's why you're still single.
It's a good question.
Wow,
that's
probably
rough.
Where to put the
valid.
knob?
That is rough.
Don't know where my knob is. So therefore I'm single.
And one of the things that you wanted on this guitar was a Bartolini pickup.
I did. Yes.
And I don't know if anyone will notice this, but this is the humbucker route, and it's a direct mount, because Bartolini will make you their 75 Ace pickup, actually any of their humbuckers, in a mount with no wings. So it's very low profile. It's going to be super sexy.
Yeah, we did a mock-up earlier with we put the Floyd in here, and we put the pickup in, and this guitar looks, for recreating a guitar from the 80s, it looks surprisingly futuristic
and surprisingly, but at the same time surprisingly
advanced.
80s style. I look at it, I'm like, it looks 80s to me. Yeah,
but just the whole idea of, I mean, there's no screws. There's not 18 screws holding something on to this guitar.
Right.
It's just okay. There's no ring. There's no. Yeah. It's all action. No.
It was super clean.
It's all cattle, no hat.
Yeah.
It's all trousers, no mouth. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's not all cat, no hat.
Yeah.
So, Ian, there was a time
about
back in the olden days, in the 80s, there were guys who had guitars like this, and their band started with the letter W,
and they were all the coolest guys
all the
in the world.
Yeah. Lots of fringe.
Lots of fringe. Yes. No,
Mm.
again, it was one of those where we came in with a set of things that this is what the original had, and I was willing to go with any direction you wanted to go with it, other than, it should look something like this.
It was actually
Yeah.
really fun to work with Lance on this
Thank you.
project because anytime there was a little, we're gonna need to put binding on it. Well, my original didn't have binding. Well, let's match it so that the ebony fretboard, you can't see the binding, and
No, it
as
looks gorgeous.
you can tell, it's bound, but you can't tell.
No, it's absolutely gorgeous, and every time I see it, and the more I look at it, the more it reminds me exactly of the original, and yet it's not the original, and that's exactly what I was looking for. It makes me feel very old.
How hard does it make you feel?
And it's gonna
How young does it make me feel?
Oh.
It makes me feel like I'm 20 again. It does. There we go.
Well, and it's in a lot of ways it's a very non-Texas Toast guitar, but
Absolutely,
there's still little cues that it's a Texas
Yeah,
Toast guitar.
yeah.
Like the headstock.
Yeah,
No,
like the
that-
logo that we,
like
that
the
we
logo,
painted on
yeah.
it. Yeah, that's exactly it.
The way we
No,
set the
just-
neck in was kind of
Yeah.
a nod to one of my
Flip it
favorite.
around. Look at the heel. I mean, the heel is
Flip-
nothing like what Hamer did at all. They were more like they tried to do things very much like Fender did. So this was their idea of a bolt-on neck, right? So this is their first attempt at trying to reproduce what Fender did.
So was it a bolt-on? But did it have a plate?
Exactly.
It had a plate, but
in a
but the plate
square
was
heel.
in a
yeah.
square heel.
Oh, on a square heel.
And
So
it was
we did the rounded. Okay.
Exactly. And it was two-way angled. So it was
Mhm.
angled toward the
Oh, okay.
the back
Oh,
of the
okay.
neck,
The
and
mhm.
yep, it was angled that
It
and
was
that way.
scooped
Exactly.
and okay, yeah, and
exactly.
well, and the funny thing is now Fender does that.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But and you guys did again. It's such a faster playing. It feels like it will be a faster playing neck than
Yeah.
even the original. And
I
that
think
was
it
what
is,
was fun.
and yeah, this, like I say, a nod to one of my favorite builders. of all
Absolutely.
time, so.
Absolutely. And again, it's everything I ever wanted. It's everything Texas Toast can do. What more could I ask for?
I
Well,
don't
and
know, but
this is an elegant way to cover up the
Yeah.
how do we hide
uh-huh.
the neck joint without bolting it on? We could have bolted
paint
it on.
red. Yeah.
Yeah, or we can do this. Yeah, and
Right.
and I don't know why we did it as a set neck, other than because you could.
Could have easily
And it
been done
was-
as a bolt-on
yeah,
neck with this
cool.
exact same setup.
Well, yeah, you could have done that, but you could have also cut it off. And
Well, then we
and
would
done
have
it.
had way more neck pocket up here.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think So
Well, and I originally
Anyway.
asked for a longer tenon than what I had.
You got it. I think if you get your chops up, you can play for Morris Day with this guitar. Just saying. Not for
yeah.
nothing.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks,
Maybe
Lance.
next
fine.
Jerome.
So, are there any more questions? I don't know how many people are still watching this thing.
Well,
or-
there's 70 people that are watching right
There's
now.
more now
Christ
than ever.
almighty.
Yeah.
Okay.
And somebody wants to know if you've done a one-piece guitar.
The telethon.
We have not done
Ah,
one piece
because of
guitar.
Will's easy guitar. Yeah,
Oh, did he have-
the one piece. Yeah, he
Did he
made
have
a
one?
guitar. Yeah, he's had this piece of wood for like 3 years that
Okay.
he wanted to make it, and it was actually a really neat project.
Cool.
To watch him do it.
Have you ever made one of the pencils or jawbreakers? I love the pencil and jawbreaker guitar guy. He's awesome.
those guitars are.
Burl's guitars.
It's
or something?
fun
I
to.
don't
It's yeah. He's like he does all sorts of artsy stuff.
It's
and
cool. Yeah.
They're really fun
Yeah.
to watch him do it and see how he does
It's
certain
totally cool.
steps, because that's one of my favorite things about building guitars is coming up with solutions to
Mhm.
obstacles that we run into on
Yeah.
a daily basis.
Yep.
So
Do you think with how much epoxy that he uses, his tools are one-time use?
No, I don't think so. I think you could plow right through that.
the
epoxy.
funny thing about all those videos is he always says exactly what the guitars weigh, and they are crazy
yeah.
heavy.
Oh,
that
really?
V that he made weighed
Yeah.
14 pounds.
Yeah,
with all the
damn.
candy and epoxy. There was
I thought that
he
was cool.
used
It was a
80
fun design. Yeah,
he used over a gallon of epoxy for that
Wow.
body. That's a lot
That's a
of
lot.
stuff, man. He had like a gallon of each that he combined.
It's like making a body out of like billiard balls.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
Next, that's his. Yeah.
yes, I'm gonna make one out of baseballs. I'm gonna start cutting up baseballs
you
next
go.
week. Yeah.
I think one of the things that he always says is people go, are you going to make these to sell? And he's like, there's no way.
Yeah,
in
he's-
hell
he's
I
not
would."
really
Looks like
is-
he's right out of his garage.
Yeah,
it is.
And
Yeah.
it's really fun to do one time. And I bet you it would get a lot less fun to do every time. But yeah, they're neat. I love
Well,
those
and
guitars.
the videos are 10-12 minutes,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean it took him 10 or 12
No,
minutes to make.
no.
It's weeks and weeks
but,
and weeks.
but in answer to the original question, I have never made a one-piece guitar. We've seen a handful of those at the NAMM show and the boutique electric builders thing. and they're neat, I guess.
Yeah, the Prince guitar is very similar to a one piece because of the neck through. I mean, it's almost a lot of the same steps as far as you got.
Well, but the fretboard's glued on and the wings are glued.
Yeah,
on.
But the Will's guitar was he had a fretboard that was glued on as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So it's not a one
Mhm.
piece.
Yeah,
I got your one piece right here.
We're coming for you, Will.
That's right. These frets are obviously added on later.
Yeah, that's clickbait, buddy.
The guy let's clickbait, dude.
Yeah,
all right.
all
Who
right.
cares?
And you're all Jane, you ignorant.
That's
slut."
right. That's
Oh
right.
yeah, we didn't get into a fight.
Yeah. I haven't watched very many of Will's easy guitar videos.
He was actually the dude that inspired me to reach out to you guys
Why?
because he was putting a whole bunch of videos up, and I was watching a bunch of them.
Okay.
And then your videos started popping up in the recommended
Okay.
stuff, and then I started watching them. I was like,
Like,
This guy's a
Yeah.
total
So
dick.
he was
Yeah,
the
these guys are
gateway drug.
dumbasses. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
work there.
He was the gateway drug.
well, yeah, that. And,
What's his claim to fame? Like ours is, of course, are stupid fabric top guitars that are made out of poplar scraps. That's the video that people have
You're
watched more
stupid.
I don't know, maybe anger.
than anger. Oh, is he an angry guy?
He's a little angry,
Okay.
but I think he's gotten better now.
The opinions represented by Monkey bear no reflection on the station and broadcast.
Hey, I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Does he have a head tattoo or anything?
No,
That guy.
I don't even know that you hardly ever see him. It's usually just
his hands?
projects.
Oh,
Yeah,
he has
he shoots from above.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I like that.
But no, yeah,
That reminds me of a Fu Manchu song.
My
does-
hands.
really easy step by step,
Okay.
super clear instructions
Cool.
on what to do, which is cool. And
Right
then
on.
He tells you like, hey, if you can't afford these tools, try something
Yeah.
like this and this.
That's
way.
right on. That's cool.
Oh, so might Will be the tone wood guy? Is he a wood knocker?
Well, I don't know.
Mhm.
He does wind his own pickups, which is cool.
Well, so is there another
How's
question
that coming
about
along, Monkey?
So I bought a pickup winder with my
Oh,
tax refund,
2 years
Last
ago?
year,
Yeah. and it is a pain in the ass, and I am not patient enough to wind my own pickup. So I
Because you're
bought,
too young. You need another 20 years strapped on.
Is it
and
at your
you'll be
new
like,
place or is it at your old
"Eh,
place?
what else am I
Listen,
gonna do?"
if you can't hand sand your body,
Eh.
then you're not winding your own pickup.
I can hand sand the body. I find that therapeutic, but I got so frustrated with the the copper wire. It would just keep breaking in my fingers. I would get to like 1,000 winds and then it would break.
You
I'm
should
like,
friend
"Ah."
Abigail Yabari on Facebook. And
I have wound exactly 4 coils and I shan't do it again.
Yeah, it's for those of you who are thinking about getting into it, know that it's very painstaking. It's a lot of practice.
How about this? I think anything that if for those of you looking forward to getting into X,
Yeah, it's not instant gratification.
you
You're gonna have to work at it.
X the band, by the
Yeah,
way.
you need to buy some equipment, you need to practice, and you need to get good. Yeah, that's
That's one of the funny things about all of this is, the idea that, oh, I like playing guitars. I should make guitars. Those are two different hobbies.
Well, they can be. You know what I mean? Like you look at Brian Nutter, that dude fucking rocks at everything. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but guitar playing is not associated with guitar
No,
building,
no.
nor the other way around.
It is rare to find
as
someone
we've
like
proven.
Brian Nutter who is
Yeah.
is as
Mhm.
as good of a musician as he is, as accomplished of a musician as he
Mhm.
is, and all that matching guitar players. You
Mhm.
look at John Sullivan, great guitar player, but I mean, he's not like in any great big bands that anyone's ever heard of.
Like Taylor Swift.
Well, yeah. I mean, and not to take a stab at John, but
We're
name
name dropping.
he's a great guitar builder,
I think part of it is
and he's a great guitar player too. But I think he's more of a builder than a player,
Yeah,
especially
they're-
at this
they're
stage.
they're two
Yeah.
different things.
when you're playing in a band and you're at a high level band, that takes up all of your time.
Mhm.
And then building guitars takes a lot of time.
I don't think
So
you're in the mic, dude.
I think that might be.
Okay.
But I think that when there's a lot of time and patience that goes into guitar building, and if you're in a high level band, I think
Yeah.
that also eats up a lot of your time. So
Well,
Mhm.
what
We're
are
gonna
you
have to
bringing on the road with you in the tour bus? My pin router.
My pickup winder
exactly.
and my Game Boy. And your Army Man, because that's what you're all
Your
about, your action
Army
figures. Yeah.
We went to
yeah.
the NAMM show.
Yeah, and-
I
and-
brought a Game Boy with me.
and
They gave me
This
so
is Army Man.
much.
and
It
Ian
was-
and I roomed together, and We got there Friday, stayed Friday to Saturday. Saturday morning, I wake up and hand to God, he's not in bed. He's beside the bed. He's got all his action figures set up, and all I hear is pew 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 pew.
You sound like Adam Goldberg.
I would get mad at Chris when I give him one of my action figures to play with me. He kept nicking my fingers. Oh, not the fingers.
Was he touching?
Yeah.
This was before we went to see the Star Wars in football.
Yeah, that's how I knew I liked him was because he let me play with Yoda.
He had his race
You
cars.
could be Yoda if you want.
Yeah, his collection it's eclectic because it's guys. He's got GI Joes, he's got Star Wars guys,
Wrestlers.
he's got original Fisher Price,
But does he have
action
porn
guys.
action figures?
No.
No, not that I noticed. Not this trip.
Those are a thing.
We're so we're so off of Gibson versus Fender.
Are we?
Well,
we?
we're,
But
we're
are we,
an
Matt?
hour and a half in.
How many people are still
We're
watching this?
devolving.
Are we losing people yet?
Oh no.
No.
I think people enjoy some of this, and you say
They like it
guitar
when
every
you go
once
off
in a
the
while.
rails.
Yeah, you say, oh, guitar. Yeah. So anyway,
So anyway, how do you guys feel about action figures?
Specifically porn action figures.
Oh, Chris and I know a guy who may or may not have porno action figures.
and by
Do they
may or
have
may not,
stones?
he does.
Chris and I may or may not know a guy who may or may not have,
Mhm.
mostly may,
Mhm.
but yeah.
Yeah. We know a guy.
They're collectibles.
I know
They
a
are
guy in the Navy,
collectibles.
not me.
Yeah.
That's every naval story. That's
Mhm.
the greatest. Are there any
It is.
questions that anyone has, or anyone want to talk about anything
Well, no,
else?
but
while we-
here's some funny comment.
Let's hear 'em.
So Spam a lot. Will had a guitar with the head of $1 million man as a knob.
Who was with Ted DiBiase?
So every time he turned the knob, did he have to go no 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 no?
No, that was the $6 million man. Is he talking about Ted DiBiase, the $1 million man, the wrestler, or Steve Austin, the
Oh.
$6 million man?
If it was after Ricky the Steamboat
you checked
Dragon,
out, yeah.
He also had a guitar with porn actress inlays, where he Mod Podged ladies scantily dressed onto the fretboard.
You know what? That's cool, but unless you're willing to change out your
Yeah.
grill cloth on your Ampeg cabinet with porno, yeah.
We could do a whole new fabric top kind of a thing.
I want to change out. Remember, were you there at the
Beaver
at the
tops.
gig where I had a bunch of porno pictures over my Ampeg
Yeah.
cabinet? I want to have that be like a permanent installation because
Mhm.
it's so cool.
Mod Podge. That's
Yeah.
how you do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a real question.
Okay.
Back to business.
All right.
boys.
Back down to business. Quit
Dirty
screwing
knobs.
around,
And
Chris.
this is at least the second time you've asked this question. I'm just now reading it.
Mhm.
Have you used super glue to glue on a fretboard?
No, I haven't, but I'm sure it could be done.
You kind of use super glue when you're lining stuff up and you want to pull the tape off and you do your double-sided
Every
super glue
so
thing.
often we'll use masking tape and super glue. Let me there's a handful. You know what? Yes and no, because when we did some experimenting with Rich Light, super glue worked great to glue Rich Light to maple.
Yeah, you were concerned that
Uh-huh.
regular glue, which proved to not
Which-
be true.
No, regular glue with no scuffing sucked dick. It would just
Well,
pop right
yeah,
off with Rich Light. So
yeah.
you had to scuff it back, but then regular type on would work fine. But super glue or epoxy worked great too with Rich Light.
Yeah.
So one of the things about a rosewood, especially a particularly oily rosewood or something like that, you can use an adhesive that's not aliphatic resin. You can use an epoxy or super glue or something like that, and probably do better than regular wood glue. I've also seen guys like they'll take a acetone and try to get rid of the oily residue on one surface. Obviously not this one on this surface, and that works too. But I've heard of guys using epoxy and super glue and alternate adhesives for really oily wood. So yeah, that might be a way to use super glue. If you,
Super glue sets up so fast.
Yeah.
I'd be
You have to be lightning fast.
yeah. Epoxy,
you've got a little more work.
a little
time.
more work time. Yeah, and I don't need hours. I need a minute.
Okay, this question. This is a Stu Mac question. If you could only have one glue, one adhesive, what would it be?
Fish glue.
It's not fish glue. It'd be type on every
Yeah,
single time.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not the
Yeah.
greatest for every single thing, but it's awfully
No.
damn good for lots of stuff.
And if you
so,
clamp it, it's
yeah,
better
clamp it,
than
Jed.
most. Yeah.
So
If I could have
Jazz
only
hands?
one adhesive, I'd have screws. More screws is always the answer.
Yeah.
Screws and zip ties.
just screw the fretboard on
Yeah,
everywhere.
I'm gonna
there's
start.
fixing to be
I'm gonna start zip tying pick guards on. I don't know
Good.
how I'm gonna do it. But it's gonna be rad.
good move, Chet.
I'm gonna cut my hand on a sharp zip tie end, bleed all over everything. Yeah.
Tone blood.
Sweet.
In the mountain bike world, the number of zip ties that you have on your bike is directly related to how cool it is, and the more zip ties, the better.
Mm.
It's true.
I also, is my
It is
understanding
true.
the car stereo world is a lot like that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there any more questions or comments, Carrie? What do we got here?
We're devolving into the $6 million man action figure that had the worst telescope ever that you looked through the back of his head. He was kind of like John F. Kennedy meets Lee Majors. I can stick my eye up to the back of his head and look out.
Oh,
and I'm
that
like,
sucks. Did you just come up with that, or is that something that somebody said?
no, I'm brilliant.
You are brilliant in a really twisted way.
When I was a kid, every time we'd go to the store, like LaBelle's, which was a thing, or I would want to go to the toy department. And
It's
my mom
funny
would
'cause
say,
it's true.
It's
"You
funny
can
'cause
go to the
it's
toy
awkward.
department, but you can't put your eye up to the ViewMaster or the Steve
Oh,
Austin guy
You're gonna get
because of
pink
pink
eye.
eye." Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know, which made me want to do it even more. So
We
I'm
didn't
like,
share, like us
Conjunctivitis.
girls, we didn't
Yeah.
share mascara or eyeliner or any of that shit. Oh no.
Because
yeah.
because one of your friends put shit in their eye.
Yeah.
I,
I
don't
think
know. She
a
could
lot
have
of-
like bukkake eye. I don't know what she's
I
doing.
think a lot of
I'm
people
not
didn't
around.
realize, because I didn't realize up until my probably 30s what pink eye really was, or
Yeah.
what caused it,
Yeah.
you know? So, and then I found out and was like, oh, that's it?
That's it.
Oh,
Poop in
yuck.
your eye. Yuck.
Yeah, yuck.
Conjunctivitis.
All right.
It sounds way worse than pink eye.
Mm-hmm.
Pink eye is just sort of like, pink eye. What do you?
Yeah. You could go blind from pink eye.
Okay, we're getting back to business now.
Oh, we have
Okay.
a thing. Or okay,
This is a
goodness.
real legitimate, like,
let's hear it. I'm all ears.
off-topic question. Truss
Wait
rod.
a second. I thought this was all business.
We
now
were
it's
It is.
off
saying-
topic.
No, it's
all of a
business.
sudden.
Off-topic.
Oh,
You know,
okay. All right.
Gibson versus you're trying to
Okay,
like have
okay,
like the
gotcha.
Jets and the Sharks thing going on. It's not working. We're all just gonna dance together. All right. So truss rod adjustment placement, heel or headstock, and why?
Mm.
Discuss.
on an angled headstock, I put the adjustment at the headstock because it's easy. On the Fender style headstock, I put it at the heel because there's more room for me to put my logo if we don't do it like that.
And it's classier.
I think it's classier. Yeah, it's not as
Yeah.
easy, but it's classy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I
Keep it
mean,
classy.
How often are you really?
If you have a
Adjusting.
single action truss rod, you're probably dicking with that thing twice a year. If you don't, if you have a two-way heavy duty rod, yeah, you probably set it and forget it, you know. And especially one of our bases, with the steel rods, yeah, you set that once and yeah, you never think about it ever again. So that's how I roll. What do you think? Let's
Mhm.
specific to Fender and Gibson. What do you think? Obviously, there's no Les Paul with a heel adjust truss rod, but
Yeah, the set necks that we've made with heel adjust is a total pain in the ass, because then you have to take a pickup out
Which
and
is
you got to remove
one
well,
or two guitars. How many were there?
not that many. Yeah,
The
you
GWE
know.
guitar was the last one,
Yeah,
and that actually worked pretty well. But you did have to pull the P90 pickup out
mm-hmm.
and monkey with the.
And I did my double neck
the
that way,
Mosrites. Yeah, that's
and the
right.
Mosrites are,
Yeah, I
are
forgot
kind of
about
that
the
way,
Mosrites,
and
yeah.
yeah, and it's a hassle. So the traditionalist in me likes heel adjust on Fender style necks
I do too.
because it looks traditional and it just
Mhm.
looks better.
Mhm.
But when it comes time to adjust that truss rod, I really wish it was in the
Sure.
in the
Sure.
face of the headstock.
Oh crap!
But you also have to try and make it look nice or cover it
Absolutely.
with something, and which is a whole other
Mhm.
thing. And so I'm fine with it being in the heel.
Yeah.
It's not that big of a deal. So
Well, Andrew St. Pierre says probably the only guitar podcast to ever contain the term bukkake.
Or Ted DiBiase.
guitar,
Mrs.
yeah.
Texas toast for the win. And Andrew, Weenie roller to you, buddy.
Yeah, weenie roller to you,
Yeah.
weenie roller.
To Andrew. Come on.
Here's the, Andrew's a Patreon member, and by the way, everyone who's a Patreon member who's watching or will eventually watch, I know I've been dropping the ball on shirts. I've got shirts that are on the way. I'm a bad Patreon curator. I will get shirts out to everybody ASAFP. So, but thank you to all of our Patreon members for helping support the channel. You guys really make all this stuff possible. All this wacky, what'd you call it, Lance? This guerrilla theater, guerrilla podcast. The podcast is as good as it is. Thanks
As
to
good as you remember.
That's
that
right.
You were. I
No,
don't know how that song goes.
the podcast is as good as it is thanks to everyone at Patreon. So thank you so much for helping us out with everything that you guys do.
So here's a little blast from the near distant past. Cheddar Kung Pao.
Ah, I
Where
love that
you
guy.
been, dude? Come on.
He comes on every so often. Yeah.
Well, I don't see. You don't call. You don't write. The
Yeah.
kids must be huge. And he wants
He has
to
two
know.
dogs.
Oh, he's got his hands full.
Yeah.
So he wants to know if Chris will do a. This is Chris.
No, I will not do that.
Yeah, do it, dude.
Can you show us your
I might
sweaty
do
balls?
it. Yeah, maybe later. Yeah.
I don't even get that.
For
I was
those
thinking it
not
was
in
going to
the
be like
know-
something. Yeah.
Yeah, that was from the first iteration of the podcast.
Yeah.
Whenever we
That
would
was
start,
Chris, he
Chris
would
would
go,
go up.
Oh, with what it was just the
This
audio
is-
podcast.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not everyone knows this, but Monkey used to do an audio podcast.
Mhm.
Is there any way we can get these video things onto that? Like, what was it, Spotify
I'm
or
sure
whatever
you
the
can post
shit
a
that
link.
thing was?
It was Podbean.
Bean.
We would have
Flick the bean.
to get a recording of
Oh,
it
fuck
somehow.
that.
So
Yeah,
if
well,
we
all right,
had-
we're not
If
doing
we had
that,
some
yeah.
sort of software and just plugged this in and recorded
We
it as
don't,
well.
and we're not gonna.
You
Mhm.
can post a freaking link. Don't make it so complicated.
We have a YouTube thing. That's fine.
You can post.
It's the second largest search engine in the world. Just ask Cheddar Kung Pao. He'll tell you. I think. I don't know. That's what
It's
I heard
all
one
owned
time.
by Google. So
This is the first largest,
Yeah.
second. I don't know. Anyway, what else we got?
We're devolving.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up then. We're an hour and 41 minutes.
this is a Joe
Fuck's
Rogan
sake.
podcast.
listen. We've got like
We're not
Like
even like
about-
talking about DMT or
we've got
aliens.
a little over
monkeys,
6 hours
chimps.
left. We got so
We're not doing this for another 6 hours.
6 hours and almost 20 minutes. We could.
We're not
possibly
doing
go
that.
on.
All right, we're not
Just
doing
because you can doesn't mean you should.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Keep them wanting more. Let's go ahead and wrap this. Are there any more
Too
questions?
late.
Are there any more questions that we absolutely positively have to answer? No.
Nope.
I got a question. Which one
Why
of
are
you,
you such a fag?
which one of you bitches ate my Twix this afternoon? I had a Twix over there and somebody ate it.
I did.
Son of a bitch.
I got a question for
I'm
you.
surprised somebody answered.
I got a question for you. Yum Yum's a stupid name.
Hey,
All right. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up, guys. This is well past what we had
Yeah.
imagined. I hope that we at least touched on a few things that
I
made
think
people
that
think.
next week
"Hmm."
we should have some Charlie Murphy true stories.
Yeah, that'd be great. We have a
We'll
dead
just-
guy who's
Well, no,
yeah.
we'll just do
Charlie Murphy's
Yeah,
Texas
Charlie
Toast
Murphy's
True
dead.
Hollywood
Died like
stories.
a
It'd
year
just
and a half
be
ago.
all our stories, real or made up.
When we met that guy who knew
hmm
Lonnie Mack.
I can tell my my car story.
Yeah,
I could tell my my Anthony Kiedis story.
Oh yeah, we could talk about the chick that
Yeah,
Chris
we could
banged at the NAM show.
the business card.
You know,
That's the name of the short
You know,
story
I-
in my upcoming
I
series
try
of
and-
short stories.
I try and keep these things, at least for me,
The chick
classy.
Chris
and not trashy. And you guys just go all like, yeah. Here's a picture of a chick that I'm not even gonna say it.
Chris
You know?
banged at the NAM show.
Yeah,
I think
it's not true.
That's
funny is
slander.
None of it's yeah.
I think this podcast should just really be trying to make Chris
Try and
feel
make Chris
as
crack,
comfortable as
yeah.
possible.
Mhm. Well, that's pretty much my entire life is trying to make Chris as uncomfortable as
No,
possible.
as comfortable
know,
as possible.
I sure like drunk Chris better than I like regular Chris, which
Chris,
is
you
something that
shouldn't
I've
make
heard
it
several
so
times.
Easy to accomplish. and
Oh,
then
I'm not
it
trying to
will-
make it
fuck
easy.
It will lose
sake.
its luster.
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah.
who was the guy? We could talk about the time the time that we met the guy who knew Mickey Free.
Mickey Free.
Yes. Yeah.
Mickey Free is awesome.
Have
Hey,
you
and
told your
Lance,
car story yet?
by the way,
No,
if you
there's not time.
practice, you could probably get that gig in Shalimar with this guitar. All right, everybody.
That's actually the
Best story of all time.
no,
Besides
the
Chris's car
Charlie
story.
Murphy stuff had Mickey Free.
It
in
had Mickey
man.
Free in it. Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Uh-huh. What was that guy's name?
It's
Mickey
six-
Free.
it-
No,
Oh, Jimmy Mack.
Jimmy Mack.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
And Jimmy Mack was really cool.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Guys, thanks for everybody for tuning in and thanks for sticking with us as long as you did. And I'm sorry that it went so long, but we had a lot of fun. We had some laughs. Yeah,
We had some laughs. We shared some stories.
It got real personal.
we did.
We solved some problems. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves.
I don't know what next week's topic is going to be, but I think it's going to be something equally stupid and
easily falling off the rails.
and easily to fall off the rails. So
yeah.
actually, I think I have an idea. I think next week's podcast is going to be how we would redesign the Gibson Les Paul if we had the chance, which is a follow-up to my video that I made, how I would drive Gibson into the ground. Yeah.
I think there should be a contest who can come up with the best live stream topic, and they can get a fabulous.
They could win a
t-shirt
fabulous thing.
or a
They could
Texas
win a-
toaster. Usually have to be
It's my
present.
wife giving away the store.
Yeah.
I have to
Not
usually have to
existent
be
t-shirt.
present to win a Texas toaster.
I'm not doing that, but if
I'll
anybody
put
wants
out
to
my
send
own cash
anything,
dollar.
yeah, all right. So
Mhm.
thanks everybody for watching, and tune in next time. And we've got more videos coming this week. This is Matt here at Texas Toast, and of course I am with
This is Chris.
Sir Cheddar Kung Pao, and I'm with Monkey.
Yep, I'm monkey.
That's all you got. That's your tagline now.
Oh yeah.
Thanks to Mrs. Texas Toast for putting up with us, and thanks to Grace and Lance for being here live in the studio with us. And we will see you guys next week. This is Matt at Texas Toast reminding you that life is short. You might as well have a cool guitar. Thanks for watching, everybody.